Hello, welcome to Conversations for the Moving Self. I am your host, Megan, a lifelong movement artist and facilitator. Each week, I invite you inside of the honest conversations that I have been having with some incredibly inspiring movement and well-being practitioners, as we unpack the beautiful roller coaster it is to pursue a lifestyle built around movement and well-being. Join us as we share and reflect on the moments where a movement lights your soul on fire, to the situations where you begin to question everything. Welcome to Conversations for the Moving Self. For episode 16, today we have Rose Sall, who is a Dutch Senegalese independent dance artist, performer, and creator based in London. Her movement practice is rooted in contemporary and diasporic movement, shaped by embodied memory, spirituality, and poetic expression. Rose has trained at various institutions and programs over the years and is now performing internationally with various artists as well as a company dancer for Far From the Norm. But Rose also is the co-founder of Nomad Dance Collective and is creating her own choreographic work and teaching at various institutions, which is actually how I met Rose. We met during my time training and a choreographic process with another lovely artist named Alethea Antonia. And from the day I met Rose and Alethea, I was so inspired by Rose's duality that she encompasses in the studio between bringing warmth and compassion into the space while also pushing herself and the artists in the room to take risks, explore the body's technicality, creativity, and physicality. And yeah, I every time I get the chance to be back in the space with Rose, I leave feeling so full and inspired and just excited about dance and movement. And yeah, I feel super grateful to know Rose. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me and for saying such really sweet things. Hmm.
I mean it all. Yeah, we'll start today with just how you're showing up for your movement and well-being practice today. It's Monday morning.
Monday
Um,
morning.
yeah.
Yeah. I would say like today I've really shifted from, I used to be very good in kind of like continuously pushing myself, which has definitely changed over the last year specifically, but it started, I guess, like about 2 years ago. And now I've become much more intentional in what do I need when. So does that mean I need more softness, like leaning into that? Do I need more again, like building physical resilience or emotional resilience? And does that mean testing my boundaries? Then I'm a bit more intentional in that. Making sure I tend to different sides of myself. So not just dance, that took a little while to learn as well. And making sure I do other things that I love doing and see the people that I want to see regularly. And yeah, so maybe looking at it more from like a holistic perspective rather than just like a dance training perspective.
I love it. Thank you for sharing. And yeah, I wondered as you were speaking uh, how you're feeling about it now. Like I can imagine it's feeding you so much, but I would love to hear a bit more about how it's going.
Yeah, I guess it came from a place of also like reaching exhaustion and noticing like, oh, I have to change something because it's not sustainable if I keep doing it this way. And it's like beautiful to hear how you said earlier that um after like my classes, you end up leaving really full and like excited about dance. And I was like, oh, I love that you said that because I feel like that's something I had to also look for in multiple times during my career. Like, what does that excitement look like? And what do I need to protect that and keep that alive? One of them also being, for example, exhausted all the time and realizing actually it's not sustainable and I don't feel as excited about it anymore, but I still very much love it. Like I love dance and movement. And then noticing, oh, I have to change and shift certain things to kind of keep that for myself and not lose that. So what did that look like? Looked like honoring a little bit more my boundaries towards myself. I don't think necessarily that other people may have noticed it. I think it's definitely giving myself more permission to yeah, rest, do other things, change the movements because the body also changes as you age and may need different things in different parts in your career. So not being too rigid in, oh, but I've always done it this way, so I need to keep on doing it like that. And if I don't, that means I'm failing, or my training isn't as good. But just allowing that to shift as you also change your approach to like movement and need different things. So like yeah, boundary setting and then honoring that. And then at some
Mm.
point, reaching again this thing of, oh, I feel like I can push a little bit more again in some areas because I've been looking after myself quite well. This I've noticed the last few months, and that was really nice because I guess that builds trust as well. And then like slowly thinking, oh, where can I push more? Where can I be intentional in testing my limits and going beyond
Mm.
that rather than always expecting that from myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, it makes so much sense. I wondered as you were speaking, like what things for you notice make you be able to kind of step back. I was just talking to a friend recently about this thing of when we get so close to our own life, and how to just step back and to notice, okay, this is maybe I am falling into this habit. Uh, yeah, what practices or what things, or maybe it's other people, what things maybe brought that up for you, or at the moment are bringing it up for you?
Mm. Well, I think like the body always tells us. So I
Mhm.
think, yeah, really listening to how I'm actually feeling. And it's such a like, I would say blessing and a curse, the training that we have. Because in one way, as dancers, we're very in touch with our body, but also our emotional body through that. But also we're very good in ignoring the needs and, just like pushing and fully serving whatever we think we need to serve and therefore not listening to it as well.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like, it's a bit of both because I remember someone once telling me, "Oh, but you're a dancer, so like you must be great at, you must be so in touch with your body." And I was like, "Yeah, but I've also ignored it, so for so long and like completely disregarded a lot of the signals it was giving me." So I think this thing of like noticing physically when I need to shift something, and then also having friends that are not necessarily in the dance world. I've always kind of like needed them to ground me and really
Mhm.
to know that dance is beautiful and is important, but is not the most important thing. And there's a lot of things that are happening in the world. There's a lot of different ways that we can contribute to different communities. And again, I guess that aspect of or this thing of like these different aspects of ourselves and having different people remind you of that, I think is very important. Yeah. And
Yeah.
keeps me sane as well.
Yeah, yeah, to kind of shift the perspective, and yeah, it keeps you sane, the relatable feeling.
Yeah.
Um, I think as you were speaking, I was just thinking a lot about like work-life balance and this term that's used so often, but yeah, the feelings that come up, I know for me, like in the moments where I first started to try to be a bit, I always say that like university, studying dance actually taught me to be more human. And
Mm,
a family member one time was like, "Ah, so you don't like dance anymore?" I was like, "No, no, no, not at all. It's not that. It was just that because I was able, I think up until that time, I was always trying to fight to have it in my life more. And how many hours of it could I fit outside of uh, regular school? Um, and then in university, like the saturation that I was able to access with dance then made me go, oh, wait, like it is also important to now in my free time, like shift the lens and do more human things. And who am I
mm,
outside of the space so that I can keep pushing in the space? And I think, yeah, when that shift first started, there was obviously also like moments of in inner dialogue panicking a bit of like, oh, but you could be doing this and you could be doing that, and maybe some guilt as well. And I imagine that's come up for you in different ways and at different moments, and how you are navigating it or try to navigate it. Yeah.
yeah. It makes total sense what you're saying, and I thought that came up is like growth is not linear, and I think sometimes we really try to view things in like a measurable and linear way. You know, like the most amount, the more time you put into something, the more growth there will be. This, yes, for sure, but it doesn't always go in like this continuous way. But then, for example, I've noticed, you know, even if I would then shift my focus to, for example, a different area in my life for a few months, or um, I would somehow, I'm like trying to get the right words, which would then lead to, for example, a certain insight or me feeling a different way about myself in one way or another. And that would always translate back into my dance and then how I would show up in the studio or how I would show up in different works and productions. So sometimes even like the slightest realization can bring like such a big jump of like growth in your creative practice or in your artistry, more than, for example, oh, I have to do XYZ every single day, all of these classes, and I have to get as much hours in as possible. I feel like it's not always as linear as that. And now also like, you know, I'm not old, but like as you're aging, and I feel like you can also see like how all of these life experiences really change and shift my movement and like how
Mm.
much maturity there has arrived in my own practice through that. And it's a very beautiful thing. And again, makes me realize like the wholeness of it all because your dance, your physicality, your artistry, it's you. So whichever you decide to do in your life or like nurture, um, will then inevitably also like translate through your artistic practice and your dance. Um, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, it makes a lot of sense. As you were speaking, I also started to think about uh like other movement practices that have informed you over time. And I know that you also have studied a lot of the Kalaripayattu. Uh,
Kalaripayattu.
there we go. Every time I miss
You can
the
say
middle.
calorie, which is
Okay,
easier. Calorie.
perfect. But yeah, I wondered like what maybe if you could share a little bit more about your experience in that practice and in maybe other practices that are also important to your relationship with movement and how they inform your practice as a dancer, but also like just your personal your life as a
Yeah.
whole.
Mm. I guess like for example, I stumbled upon the Kalaripayattu through this choreographer and dancer named Rakesh Sukesh. He came to teach at my uni in the Netherlands, and and then I ended up kind of like following him around and taking lots of workshops with him. And then one day I asked him, okay, what is this? Because he uses elements of Kalari in his practice and in his teaching. So I asked him about it, and he explained it's a martial arts, and he also gave me like the name of different schools that I could go to. I ended up just going to India. I decided I really wanted to experience the practice in and of its own. And it's so fascinating because I remember I arrived there and I entered the pit. It's the pit. And one of the practitioners came to me and he was like, "Oh, you know, have you done this before?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, kind of," because I'd been following around, they're doing workshops with this dancer choreographer, but not knowing he would like extract just like small bits of the practice because he's also a dancer. So of course, the martial arts in and of itself like has so much more to it. So I entered the pit thinking, "Oh, I know quite a lot," and then like not knowing what was going on. And also they don't teach in English, so you're just kind of like it goes really fast and it's all on verbal commands and not knowing like the terminology. I was just like looking around like super lost trying to catch up. Um but yeah, I feel like what I loved about it is so it has like a lot of like dynamics and explosiveness in it and the use of the spine. And because it's all on verbal commands, it requires like such presence, being in the moment. You hear the command and you kind of like have to go. So what I experience in a bit, I think is so super meditative for me. It's like I switch anything and everything off. And I read a book about this practice, and the title of the book is When the Body Becomes All Eyes. And that's kind of like what it feels like when I'm doing it, is literally when you're like seeing through everything, and everything is kind of like on and ready to shift and adapt at all times. And it requires quite a lot of focus as well. There's a lot with the gaze and like the yeah. So it really grounds me and centers me in that way when I was there. And it was also the first time in particular is very transformative for me, and like how I viewed myself and movement, and also how I wanted to show up in life. Because I think this practice also is rooted in cultural tradition and honoring lineages. And I think it was the first time I experienced that so profoundly, and the power that comes to that alongside devotion, like how pure devotion can give a lot of freedom rather
Mm,
than restriction, which is sometimes maybe what we think like discipline can be restrictive, but like real, like genuine devotion, like gives a lot of freedom.
mm.
Um, yeah,
Yeah. Oh, thank you for sharing.
no
I
worries.
Yeah, I was replaying in my head like real devotion brings a lot of freedom in my head because it feels super powerful, and like as you were speaking it reminded me of the way that I feel in your classes or in your spaces where there's this ability to something that I really believe in, and I think a lot of who I'm asking on the podcast is artists who I feel like are able to encapsulate a balance between a safe space that feels like the humans are cared for, but equally still we can fully be committed to something. We can take the risk to see how far we can take the practice, our body, our ambitions, our creativity, whatever it is that we're working on in the space. And yeah, I think maybe I'm feeling some of your relationship with this practice over time, like in your dance spaces as well and movement
Mm,
spaces. And yeah, it's interesting to hear a little bit more about like the other influences coming into your space. And as we were talking about earlier, as a dancer, sometimes it's easy to start to make it your whole life and how much other practices and other things and etc. can offer to the space and to the
yes.
human and to the sustainability of it all. Hmm.
Mm,
Also, like I think, yeah, I'm in a space right now where I'm learning another language and learning about myself through that of like also just like communication skills of how else we can communicate. And I was wondering as a
awesome.
student, like in when you were training in Kalari and it was in another language and you also are you're bilingual. Maybe you speak more languages, but I know you're bilingual.
Mm.
And yeah, like what things you notice as an artist or as a facilitator, as a someone generating and sharing in a movement space, what things have maybe helped you over the years, and also like the challenges that come with being in spaces that are in other languages and how you kind of navigate all of that.
I feel like the cultural exchange that can happen. I love places and spaces where there is a cultural exchange. And maybe this is also due to my upbringing, so because I moved around quite a lot as a child. Um, but it's something that like nurtures me a lot. So I've always sought out these experiences, I would say, even when I was like studying and through experiences like, dance festivals. I over summer, like my whole summers would just be going from dance festival to dance festival, especially in Europe, because there's so many. It's not as much in the UK. It's a shame because I would come here and name all of these places, and some of my friends would be like, "Huh, what are you talking about?" But yeah, there's like Delta Bredanza in Spain, Summer Intensive Portugal, B12, Tic Tac Art Center in Brussels. So like my summers would just be like going there and taking lots of workshops from practitioners, dance artists from all around, and together with other artists from all around the world, different practices and disciplines. So also circus artists or physical theater or so not just like dancers. And I remember the very first time I went to Del Tebre, it was actually really transformative for me because institutions are great because they offer you so many classes, you have all the facilities, you don't have to come up with a schedule yourself. So like all the training is there and there's an ease that comes with that. But also each institution has like their own ideas of, what something should be like, what, or even opinions about like good movement, not so good movement, or like certain techniques that are more valued than other techniques. So then to be in like these dance festivals where you're just like thrown into the deep end of like lots of different approaches to movement with people who have very different backgrounds, I was just like, oh my gosh, there's so much out there, so many different colors, so many different flavors and tastes, and that means I can have my own. Because within like the
Mm.
institution, I've very much felt like, oh, but I have to do it a certain way. I have to do it like that because I need to get a good grade. And also, this stress of maybe like failing because I didn't move or look the way, maybe
Mm.
that they wanted me to. That was especially the first couple of years. Um, but I'm going on a tangent. So I think, yeah, this thing of like cultural exchange and like showing all the differences showed to me like there's so many possibilities and really encouraged me and gave me the confidence to try different things and to trust that difference is great and
Mhm.
that I can be different and to like lean into that and explore that. Um, yeah, I don't know if it's a real answer to the thing you mentioned before with like the languages and stuff, but I think yeah, there's something really beautiful in experiencing that. And I wish that for anyone and everyone to also experience it during training, to not stay within the walls of the institution, but really go out, take classes outside, see if you can travel for your dancing or other practices, really experience like these different environments to know that
Mm.
there's not one way to do that. There's not one way to move. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I had a like flashback as you were speaking to you actually sharing. I think you were one of the first people to tell me about Delta Break when I
Okay.
was in school, and I was like, oh wow, like flashback moment. Because I also think, yeah, it. I went 2 years ago, something like that, and
Mm.
it really was. I mean, I had been to some other dance festivals, but I think Del Tebre was one of the first ones that I felt like maybe because of the setup as it with it as well, where I was staying with the other people who were at the festival also that I didn't know because I had been to other dance festivals, but I had stayed with friends from school and we had gone together, and so it was like fun, and we still had an exchange with the other artists in the space, but maybe less of the cultural exchange. And yeah, also I think there was something about Del Tebre because for me at least, like it being in a really small town, but it was like this explosion of there was so much going on, like there's nothing there, but
It's
there's
so
everything there at the same time.
100%. Yeah, yeah,
And
100%.
yeah, like I think I actually have always said like these type of spaces for me are perfect, where it's either like a super small space with so much going on, or like where studying at LCDS, I think was a great spot for me because it was in a huge city, but quite a
Yeah.
small city in the middle of the chaos. And
Yeah.
yeah, with that, uh, it can allow you to have this grounding, but also expansion and discovery. And I think I'm also super interested in this thing of exploring difference of like being out of your normal routine and from seeing how much it changes for me when I am
When
able
you
to
do
make that
that.
happen.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that's also what you're doing now, right? Yeah.
I was like,
That's
oh yeah, I
awesome.
relate to
Yeah.
this right now.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, it's true. Like I think I really, I think that's also part of why I jumped on the opportunity was because I was kind of feeling in my being that I needed a shift of some sort. Uh, just a fresh perspective on something to make me expand, try new things, question things, and yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like when you go through such a change, it also brings a lot of opportunity to question, like, oh, but why did I do it always like X, Y, Z? And why did I find this thing important? Because you're in
Mm,
such a different environment, especially if it's a very different culture where people do things in a different way. And you can really question, I guess, your own conditioning and see, oh, but is it aligned with my norms and values? And it can really offer like great transformation in that way. So, yeah.
yeah. Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, maybe that leads nicely into I'm curious about what I know that in your career you're moving spaces a lot and traveling and touring sometimes with different artists and companies and what things you are finding, have found that are useful for navigating that constant shift and yeah, not even necessarily when it's just in travel, but also just in the sense that as a freelancer, like life is always changing and
Totally.
what's allowing you to navigate that.
Yeah. Definitely finding steadiness through routines, and they can be like routines and habits, and they can be as small or as like big as needed. I love routines. Also, if you know me, I can be very particular in certain ways, and I wasn't even always aware of it. But even something silly as like trying to stay and eat the same things. So like even when you're traveling in a different environment, but still kind of like keeping your routine in the kind of products you always eat, you know, and like finding familiarity in that. Or if you have a certain morning routine, the way you enjoy waking up, or like going for a walk. For me, alone time is very important. I always have and need alone time. And I think that's kind of helping me to stay grounded and reset. Writing, journaling helps me a lot. Or like I always have a bedtime before bedtime tea.
Mm.
So it's really about, I think, yeah, these small habits and routines and kind of like holding on to that even when the things around you are like shifting and changing so much. Um, yeah, and also that could be like at the end of the day. So I love having hot baths. I love heat. So that really helps me. And that could be different for anyone and everyone. Um, but those are definitely, I think that's really what helps when like the environment is changing all the time or when you're on tour or doing different projects. So the people you're with are changing. But then they're also finding steadiness through friends and
Mm.
keeping in touch with people that you love. Sometimes I find that quite challenging, because I'm not the best with like messaging or calling. But when I'm in London, definitely making sure I see certain people. And again, because I know they ground me, or, you know, staying in touch with my mom because we're close. That also really helps me when I'm on tour. Uh, yeah.
Mm, yeah, this might be coming from my own personal exploration at the minute,
Yeah, 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 share,
but
share, share,
of
share.
how of when you brought up alone time, I think I'm also someone who needs alone time, but I am quite a social person, but I need the alone time to recharge. And something I'm playing with at the minute is how to practice saying no, but also find the balance of yeah, like sometimes there's you know, you start to say no, and then they're like, ah, but no, maybe you can, and you're like, no, I can't. I'm really trying to say no right now. Um, but especially on something like a tour where you're traveling with other people, like how what it looks like for you to navigate finding alone time uh, when maybe it's not as easy when your routine is at home where you have your space with.
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
it's more naturally in the setup.
Yeah. I guess I would try to like communicate it. Um, I would do my best to communicate it. So, for example, there have been tours where you're also kind of like sharing rooms, and this for me is really is quite challenging. Doesn't have anything to do with the person because everyone's great, but I think it has to do with the decompressing time and that looking very different when you're sharing a room with someone. But if that would be the case, then I would, depending on also how well they know me. Once you know each other, you kind of understand and you don't take it as personal. But I guess, about like just communicatively sharing, like, actually, I need quite a lot of decompressed time. So if we come back to the hotel room and I don't say nothing, it's not because there's something wrong. I just need that, and then people
Yeah,
are always like, that's fine, because we all understand.
yeah.
So I feel like I would make it sometimes bigger in my head than what it actually is. Or there have definitely been times where others would go for drinks or go for foods together, and I would do that every now and then, but I don't have that need as often as others may have. Um, but then again, just mentioning that, and then that's fine, because they also know then, oh, but Rose needs other things, and that's
Mhm.
fine. She doesn't want to do that as often. And for me, it also looks like maybe that means I'll go and explore wherever we are on tour, like alone. One afternoon, let's walk together through the city center and like go shopping or something, go through a thrift store. And then maybe the next day, I just want to go by myself. And then, they go as a group. So I think just, yeah, finding that balance and not feeling guilty about it, because I also have had experiences where I wasn't aware of this as much, like how much I need the alone time to regulate myself, and then it would end in me being completely overstimulated, at the end of the week and not feeling my best at all, not in rehearsals either. And I think I had to get to that point quite a few times to realize this isn't nice. So I really need to, whenever in the moment I feel like actually it's a bit much today, I don't want to hang out, to then say I'm not going to join, because I know what's going to happen if I keep saying yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
See the future.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Something that stood out while you're speaking that I was like, yes, I can hold on to this. Is like even if you don't know the person as well, like we're all human. Once you explain a bit more, not that we need to justify it, but like if you give a little bit more of why, not just like, oh, I'm okay, like then a lot of times people are just gonna be like, oh, okay, it makes sense. Like, but I think,
Yeah.
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 Hmm.
Mm.
I think maybe we shift into now the opening question, the closing question, which is from our previous guest.
Mm.
Her name is Megan, and she was asking what your thoughts are on training and balancing that with your creative voice, and how technique has fueled or hindered your artistic expression. Do you believe it's as important as maybe it was? Yeah, kind of what are your thoughts around
Yeah.
that topic?
I I really loved the topic because I've been quite like, I guess I've already been having my own like questions around it these last few weeks, and I don't know if I will be able to like give a well-formulated answer, because it feels a bit like all over the place and I don't have a solution or anything. But yeah, I was having choreodrome residency for a new solo work, and really navigating the challenges of like the maker's brain, or my choreographer's brain, and then my performer's brain, because it's a solo. So I'm like, I felt like I was at time present with both brains, and they would sometimes be in a little conflict, because then that my performer me would be like, oh, but I'm asking myself to do these things that I can't do just yet, and it's not going to look good, and I don't have time to practice it. And then I had to like really consciously tell that side to kind of like shut up, because I want to honor the work. I want to honor the research of the work. And if that means
Mhm.
I need to do or look into certain things that are very new for me and I feel slightly uncomfortable as like as a performer, I need to grow into that comfort because I do the same thing when I work for someone else, you know. You rehearse, you practice, you grow into it. So that was like a real thing to navigate. And I guess also unraveling and stumbling upon like certain ideas that I guess adopted or integrated throughout my training or meeting certain people along my career of what I think is maybe more interesting movement. And I don't even know what that means, but we all have those opinions. Um, and again, having to really question like, is this really in line with the research and the process, or is this just a taste? And why is it my taste? Where does that come from? Who told me that that
Mm.
is more interesting to look at, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so in that way, I realized like definitely technique can be limiting, um, because then we can have like preconceived ideas of what we think movement should be like. But then technique also really helps us give tools and access to um, help us bring certain things across and help them come across. Because I remember years ago, I did a workshop with Rakesh actually, and he used a lot of like improvisation. And then I think I shared like some sort of short improvised solo, and then he mentioned like, oh, you know, you have a lot of feeling in you physically, but you don't have all the tools yet to
Mm.
draw it out. So, and I was still studying at the time, and I think there is something about like technique helping us to get
Mm.
access to certain things and help us to frame whatever we want to say. But it's probably a constant dialogue. You know, we gain more techniques so we can try out new things and bring the message across, but we have to deconstruct also our ideas around this technique to then help other ideas and how we want to further develop it.
Yeah.
Um, so
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then in times of like, you know, the importance, I think I'm very fortunate. I have so many friends around me with very different backgrounds, like friends who ended up going to dance schools and like had, you know, the more official route with like training and doing a bachelor in dance. And then I also have friends who didn't study dance, but were also working in the field. And I guess hearing the pros and cons from both sides, because I guess some of my friends who didn't get this like education sometimes feel like they lack technique. But then I've also worked with choreographers who said that they prefer to work with dancers who aren't as like, you know, trained by an institution because they feel like there's more of an opening to just try and take risks with them. And there is a rawness in their approach and physicality where, yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah,
I, I feel like it's quite nice that that you it feels quite aligned that that was your answer, that it is like a constant. I liked what you said about like constant dialogue. Like that feels, when I read the question, I was also like, yeah, it's a good question. Uh,
yeah,
because it feels like, yeah, as a dancer, something that we're constantly looking at and constantly answering and then unanswering and answering and unanswering. And yeah, the same as we're trying to do with the training and the creativity. And yeah,
yeah.
thank you
No
for
worries.
sharing.
Yeah.
Mm,
And I think like different times of our like
yeah.
career, we may need different things, you know. So after graduation or like these last few years, I've learned a lot through the people I work for and have worked with. I'm very grateful for that. Like learned a lot physically. So you also um improve in technique or technicality, you know, when working for choreographers outside of like dance school and training. But I've had times where I wasn't consciously looking to improve my technical capabilities because I was more focused on, um, I guess, just the playfulness around it for myself or my improvisation and feeling free in my movement and dancing, and which really helped me integrate like all of these different experiences and different styles that I've trained in. And then funnily enough, now I've reached a point again where I feel like, oh, I want to, dial up some of my technical things. So, like, what do I want to look at next year? Do I want to take classes again, in certain styles? Because I really either want to learn them, like, I want to do more house, or maybe because I want to, like, upskill again in, like, my floor work, things like this. So,
Mm,
I think in different times, you also may need different things and allowing that to fluctuate. 'Cause with
yeah,
regards to, like, what's more important, I guess,
yeah. Where do you put the energy when? And yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Hmm. It also made me think through my like teacher lens at the moment. Like, I think it's something I'm constantly questioning at the minute how to. I think because I care so much about the students that I'm teaching and their journey, I never feel like there's enough time ever. And I'm like, oh, like how in an hour and a half a week do I share? Yeah, because most of the kids, most of the students that I'm teaching, no matter what age they are, I only see for an hour and a half a week. And so how to make sure there's enough focus on both of these things, but then also, yes, it's their individual journey and they can take and push where they want or yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
yeah, but and then as a mover, what we want individually. It's a good question.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you for your generosity and openness about so much of your practice and where you're at now and how it's all going. Uh,
Mm.
for the listeners, new episodes will be posted on Saturdays and new guests will be announced on Tuesdays. Thank you so much again, Rose, for joining today.
No, thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Season 2 of Conversations for the Moving Self. If you've been here since the beginning, thank you so much for tuning in again. And if you're just joining now in the past couple episodes, I really wanted to say a big thank you for taking some time to listen, to hear these incredible conversations with some really important people to me. This podcast is a passion project and something I feel really, really excited about, but we can only continue to do it with your support. I invite you to follow, subscribe, like, and comment. Please share the podcast with any other listeners that you think might be interested. And if you have any reflections, please, please, please comment them down below. Super excited to be sharing these all with you and looking forward to the rest of the season. Thank you so much from CMS. Lots of love.